So for start, we'll pull down a wash on the sky, a graded wash, mixing both of the blues together. Make sure I got plenty of water. And I will go up to the mountaintops. Now I'll switch to the rose. Just put a nice soft row of rose across there. And then I'll switch over to the yellow. And that will give that hazy atmospheric look. And then I'll come in with the yellow again and put a light layer on those mountains. This will help keep them looking further away. You don't want it to be too bright white. And then I'll start adding in some of the shadow, that cast shadow from the other mountain. So now that I've got that underlayer, I'm going to come in and do the distant mountains, washing over there with some dulled down blue. So now I'll mix up some even more dulled down purple blue and start dropping those darks into there while it's still wet so that my edges are soft, keeping everything looking really far away. So first I mix French ultramarine into the rose and then dull it down with the yellow. Now I get an even darker shade and drop some of that into there. So here I'm copying the same colors from the sky for the water, which is reflecting the sky. And I don't have masking fluid over the girl. I only put the masking fluid on the prayer flag, so I'll have to paint around these other shapes. On the farthest side of the water, I will add a little bit of purple. So next I'm putting in the shadows on the mountain faces. So when you squint your eyes and you look into the mountains, you can see little shadowy planes. I'm just trying to follow those. And I kept a little bit of a highlight on the side where this mountain comes in front of the other ones. Then I want to come in and do some dry brush. So I'll go over to the other side where it's dry and do some dry brush scraping on the top there to look like I've got some white caps up on the top of the mountains. But this side is in the shade, so everything over there is a bit darker. Now we've got this mountain sitting on top of the one behind it. And I'll do some more dry brush scraping to get all those textures in the mountain where it breaks through the snow. So I'm just working my way around the mountain carefully, making sure I don't overdo it. You got to keep your whites. And then these areas here down close to the prayer flags, that's where things start to become a little more dense and dark. They go into the shadow areas. Down here in the valley, this is all dark down here. But this is the navy blue that I mixed, and then I will drop in some straight Payne's gray for a really dark to make it look like there are lumps in the hills down there. And I'm also being very careful not to paint over my little river that is receding back into the valley. And I'm getting all those darks in there in between those prayer flags and keeping those shapes looking like they are being blown in the wind. So they kind of curve. And as I get to fill in this shape, I'm going to be careful to paint around the girl's head. So I also am painting around that little tower of rocks. And also dropping in some of those really dark darks with the Payne's gray. And you have to make sure that you have that value dark enough to push you down into the valley. Otherwise it will appear strange and flat. So now I'm using all of my mud from my tray, giving it a good clean, and making a nice warm gray by adding more yellow to it. And that will be my foreground color. You need the warmth to pull you forward. And here I've got that highlight going around my rocks. Helping to separate them from the background information. And just painting around the girl's body. So I'll fling some darks into there and drop in bits of water, just playing with the texture. So this foreground is very lumpy, but I want to keep it from being too detailed. And now I'll get some of the darker darks on there. Give her something to sit on. And here I'll add a couple darks, but I'm still keeping most of that highlight around the rocks. And I'll just connect in a couple areas so that it's not a complete white line around it. The same with her head. I want my highlights to stay on there, separate them from the background. And so I painted her hair kind of brown, and then I'm using a warm purple by having more rose in it. Pull her forward. So now just throw in a few more darks. Get plenty of shadow under the material that's draping on the side of the mountain there. And just give her kind of a hint of a leg. Oh, so now is when I'm adding in the final extra darks onto that rock pile. So just sort of doing what I call scribble painting right now, just to add texture. And then I will have these long cast shadows coming from the tall objects. So I'm using a purple mix for these shadows so they stand out from the background. Painting them on so it looks like they are going over some lumpy ground. So here, the shadow behind her is got some big boulders in front of it. So I carved those out. And now I'm going to remove the masking fluid. And I'm going to do the underlayer of these little prayer flags because they're layered one on top of each other, this sheer material. So these are the underlayers. And I'm trying to keep these colors watery and transparent so that it looks like they're see-through. And then I'll add some shadows into this material that is flowing in the wind, and I'll give them a variety of shadows that are grayed down, some rose, some blue, and some yellow. And I'm not putting in too much detail over in this side area here so that it doesn't distract you from the focal point. And now I'll put that other layer of color on top of there. And give it a little rim where it's going over the clothesline. And my green I'm making by mixing the yellow with the cerulean blue. And then once I pull those colors all the way across, then that's it.